Bible study here on a Tuesday night, November the 5th. We have not as yet, as of right now that I'm doing this, we don't yet know who will win the election. By the time some of you see this, you'll know. But, you know, the Jews, I just heard today on the news, the rabbis were assembling together to pray for this election here in America. And the reason they want to do this is because they're scared, I think, of Kamala Harris getting in, because she has already said she is definitely in favor of what they call a two-state solution. Now, let me explain to you what a two-state solution is. Don't let Israel have their own land, give some of it to the Palestinians. Well, you might say, that sounds Christian. The problem is the Palestinians have taught their children, and UNRWA has funded it, to kill Jews. And if you give them a two-state solution, it's the same thing as if you have, let's say, 5 or 6 acres where you live, and your biggest enemy wants to live on your property. Are you going to give him 2 or 3 acres to live right beside of you? No, you wouldn't be that stupid. But that's what America wants to do, or the Democrats in our government. They want to have a two-state solution where we give the Palestinians land so they can then attack Israel, because their whole thing, their whole motivation is driven by religion that is anti-God and pro-Allah. It's anti-Jewish, it's anti-Semitic, and they hate the Jews. They hate them. I mean, they want to kill all the Jews they can. They're willing to become suicide victims in order to kill as many Jews as they can. I have read in the Quran, I have a copy of the Quran at home, that's the Muslim Bible, and they made this statement. Now, there are different translations, but the one, I've actually seen it in 2 translations. But the statement reads like this: when you, as a Muslim, when you meet the infidel, lop off their heads, or I think the word strike off their heads, and make a great slaughter among them. And they take that seriously. So would you give your backyard to your biggest enemy who only wants to kill you? Of course not. So Kamala Harris, I heard her say it, they replayed that again just, I think it was yesterday. They played it again where she said, you know, she wants a two-state solution. Now, the reason that the rabbis are praying about our election, if Donald Trump gets in, they have honored him with a coin. It might have been a commemorable coin, but anyway, with his picture on it, because he moved the embassy, the American embassy, from Tel Aviv down to Jerusalem, and they like him and they respect him. When Donald Trump came to office, he sat down with Obama, who hadn't yet left the White House, and he asked President Obama, what's the biggest thing, that's the biggest crisis facing America today? And Obama said, North Korea, because we will probably end up in a war with North Korea. And when Trump came into office, you remember he used to call the guy there in North Korea a little rocket man. He was making fun of him. He said, but if you ever attack this country, he said, I will bring devastation on North Korea like you wouldn't believe. And what's his name, Kim Jong-un, or whatever, how you say it. Man, he said that guy means business. And the whole time Trump was in office, North Korea did not come against us. But now, with the Democrats in, they may be getting ready to do that. And if they do, I'm going to tell you this. I'm not a prophet, and I'm not telling you, mark my word. I'm just saying it's very possible that if North Korea, and by the way, twice this week I've heard that Iran is already planning a military attack against the United States. What I'm going to tell you is this. It's very, very possible, and I would say even very likely, that if they're going to do that and they're concerned that Trump may win the election, they'll do it between now and January 20th. Very possible they may do that. That they would attack the United States. And if North Korea, who is now very heavily allied with Russia, and Russia is very heavily allied with Iran, if they were to attack us, that would be the ideal time. Now, if Harris gets in, they can take their time and attack us anytime they want to. They're not afraid of her. In fact, Putin has gone on record for saying, we want Harris to win in the United States. They don't want Donald Trump to win because he's a strong, strong man, and they're afraid of what he might do. Let me read you something. What does God say about a two-state solution? In Joel, the 3rd chapter, here's what it says. 3rd chapter, let me read, I'll start in verse 1. Behold, in those days and in that time when I shall bring again the captivity, that should be a capital C on that word. It's talking about the people who went into captivity. They are the captivity. When I bring them back into the land. the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem. I will also, verse 2, gather all nations, and they'll bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. This is the battle of Armageddon. And will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel. Now listen to this. Whom they have scattered, and they've parted my land. Now, I brought with me tonight the Jewish translation. It's not called Holy Bible, it's called Holy Scriptures. And I've got it marked here. Here's the way it reads in the Jewish translation. It doesn't say parted, it says divided my land. That's in verse 2. Whom they have scattered among the nations and divided my land. That's exactly what the Democrats are wanting to do, and probably a number of Republicans, and it's the wrong thing to do. God is against those who divide his land. And if you're going to divide it, first of all, we don't have the right to tell Netanyahu what to do. We all just get out there and help them, but don't tell them what to do. But if they divide it, they're going to divide it between Israel, God's people, and the Muslims, the Palestinians. And the Palestinians are constantly trying to figure every way they can to annihilate all the Israelites. I shouldn't say Israelites, the Israelis. That's the dumbest thing that our government could do, is to help Israel's enemies to destroy them. And that's what we'd be doing. So that there are a lot of rabbis today in Israel praying for this election. Now, are they specifically praying who's going to win? Well, I didn't hear. That wasn't reported on the news. But what was reported was they're really praying for this election. You know why? They're scared. They're worried. I can tell you what they're worried about. I think you know already. If Harris is elected and they're scared, man, we're in big, big trouble for the next 4 years. If Trump gets in, they're going to breathe a sigh of relief. Here's the thing. Let me say this and I'll conclude. Christians should participate in their own government, because if you don't participate, then you're giving it to the atheists and the agnostics, and you're letting them do it. Some churches say it's a sin to vote. Folks, if you don't voice your opinion, you're giving your freedom over to the atheists, the agnostics, the pro-abortion people, the anti-family people, the pro-homosexual lobby. You're giving it away. Now, by this time, you've either already voted, or most of you probably, it's too late now for you to vote. So by this time, either you voted or you didn't. And if you didn't vote, and we get a bad government because you didn't vote, you're partially responsible. Do you realize, think about this, do you realize that God himself could hold you and me and every other Christian accountable for how this election turns out? If we do nothing. If you do something, that's one thing. Even if the wrong side wins, if you vote and support and pray for the right side, God's going to take that into account. But if you do absolutely nothing, two things. Number one, God will hold you accountable for not doing your part. And remember the guy, that one talent man who didn't do anything? He buried his talent, and God called him a wicked and slothful servant. That's one thing. Your God's going to hold you accountable. But secondly, I don't want to hear you complain. Don't you say one word. If you didn't vote, you didn't participate, shut up. Your voice wasn't heard in the voting booth, and I don't want to hear your voice now if you didn't vote. Now, I've said my piece. All right, be with us this Saturday at 10:30. Every Saturday at 10:30, live over Facebook and YouTube, Christian Fellowship Ministries, and go to that site, and you can watch us. You can be with us live, and you can bring in your questions, and we'll be glad to try to answer your questions live.
And Thursday at 5:30.
Thursday at 5:30, we'll have another one of these short Bible studies. Be blessed.